Live streaming is on.
Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fialka. Today is October 22, 2021. We want to thank Clinton Ignatoff, Concerned Medicine, for hosting us. Thank you, Clinton. You are the best. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Cory McAbee. Wow. Where are you calling in from, Cory?
Queens, New York. I'm about a half a block from Brooklyn, so right on that borderline.
First question is, what's the best thing for a human being?
For a human being? Whatever the best thing is for a human being is probably the worst thing for a human being too. Probably that would be other human beings, I'm guessing. But I don't know.
That's amazing. You know, I always want to psychoanalyze the questions themselves. So you started off like right off the bat beautifully, but you know, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but the first question you got right. No, I got that question from a woman who studied with Wilhelm Reich. And the best thing for a human being is another human being. So anyways, you know, like all these questions, it's just your hunch. It's just your impulse. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. And the next question is, what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Favorite form of information? Maybe YouTube.
Wow. Way to be honest, man. That's amazing. Yeah. So why do you think humans collect or gather information?
To keep from stagnating like fruit sitting in the ground. You know, I find it, the older I get, the more interesting things become.
Yeah.
I enjoy the things that I've been writing lately require a lot of research. I call them functional fictional or functional factual fiction, where I'm creating narratives, but I'm also using science and information that's true or based on truth, and then trying to create something out of that.
It's beautiful. That's FFF.
Yeah.
That's where I'm calling in from, is the Fialka Funny Farm. FFF. Same difference. Functional factual fiction, man. So Cory, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think it's inventive. The more and this is something I've been hearing a lot in different things I've been watching and studying, is that the more somebody knows, the more they realize how little they know. As to where if somebody has a tiny bit of information, they assume they know everything. If you ask somebody who doesn't know much about something, their confidence level is very high. But if you ask somebody who studies it their whole life, they realize how much there is still left to be known. So they will discredit being the world great authority on it.
Yeah, it's also that exercise I love to hear about, is when you have to unlearn, or relearn. Unlearning is really the key, because we think we know. Yeah, unlearn. I mean, it's not the key, but it's one key. Yeah.
Well, I think during adolescence, where you're only born a short time before that, and as a form of sanity, you start to categorize everything. Like, this is my best friend, this is my favorite movie, this is and then as you get older, you start breaking those boxes down, the less you need them, and realize you don't know anything, which opens up doors to trying to find things out. Which is what you're doing originally during the adolescence as well. It's just that there's a much more urgent need.
Yeah, that's a great unreleased Zap album, Crush All Boxes. Do thoughts create emotions?
Yeah. I can just stand there and do the dishes and get all worked up over all sorts of things.
Is thinking more innate or more invented?
Both. It can be
Yeah.
very repetitive, but it's, sometimes it's that repetition that creates change, but sometimes it just keeps you, going in loops.
Fill in the blank, Corey. I don't know what I think until I
Get drunk.
Ah! Bravo! That is great. Boy, I haven't had that answer. I got that from McLuhan. I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. But yeah, listen, that was a good answer. That made me okay. Can humans think without language?
Um, I like that question. I think the language informs the thought. Like in 1984, the idea of the Book of Newspeak is trying to control people's thoughts through controlling language, and there's a lot of that going on today too. But I don't think it's. But I think it just takes on a different form. I only speak English, but I wish I spoke other languages. I heard that you are, for each language you speak, you are a different person, and I envy people who speak a lot of languages.
Yeah.
Here in my neighborhood, like the guy who works at the local bodega, he speaks probably like 6 different languages. Like he carries on conversations with everybody who comes in. And I just think, I see him and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
he's amazing.
No, it is an essential thing that I feel the same way as you. I know one language. Except moving to California, I know the word dude. That's another language. People look at you and go, dude, all you say is dude. But I love that word informs. Language informs thought. Because, you go to these highbrow film festivals and they show your films and they go, Cory, what informed your film? What informed the making of your film? I love that verb. So Chomsky says that a language is not just words. It's culture, tradition, unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language breaks down? When language,
like a dead language?
Well, when language doesn't work, for some reason you're trying to communicate and language isn't working, what do you do?
Oh, well, that seems to be the case more and more these days. That people's are confusing their opinions for facts, and there's no getting around them. And I've, the only way to take the high road is to change the subject or walk away from a conversation. There's, because I've recently been, I'll have a conversation with somebody and they'll tell me their opinion and I'll realize, okay, there's no conversation going to happen here. That they, again, it goes back to the less you know, the more you assume how much you know that you're the authority. And, people don't want to have a conversation. They don't want to be told they're wrong. I think it was Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. And that's the battle that we often find ourselves in.
Really good thought there, Mark Twain. So is you in observing human beings for the many years you have, just in general, I know it's both and it depends. Are humans more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think feelings thwart thought. It's pretty tough to think beyond something. I've even on really base levels, like people, if somebody's experiencing a great deal of jealousy and anger, people say, well, why don't you just, rise above it? And oftentimes that's like telling somebody who's been cut, stop bleeding. It's bad for you. You're going to lose your blood.
2 questions from Alan Turing, 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
A function of the soul.
That's good. Everybody, this is a new question I'm just adding, and everybody goes, well, it depends on what you mean by the soul, but adding that little word, A function. Yes, very good. And so his other one was, can machines think?
That's something I've been watching a lot of videos on, like early 1950s MIT videos, and that's a word that back then the scientists were very, they're like, don't use the word think, and don't use the word intelligence. That was something they were really concerned about. I don't think they're concerned about that anymore. I think they want to sell the idea that these are thinking beings. But yeah, I guess it depends on what you think thinking is.
Yeah. Well, this is somewhat related in that, does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Is consciousness there bubbling away and we're kind of detecting it, or are we actually creating it?
I would say detecting.
Yeah.
You know, I've been put under for surgery a couple of times, and I've fainted a couple of times, and I know what it is to have a gap between awareness, where they'll put the fluid in you, and then next thing you know, you're somewhere else, and there's absolutely no time missing between that. So with that experience, I would say detect. Oh, good, I got a cat.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light.
Audre Lorde, the poet, said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Audre Lorde said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded, she said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
To dismantle the house. There was an Einstein quote that was similar in a way, where he was saying that you can't fix a problem using the same thinking that created the problem.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact words, but that was the idea. So it would just have to be a new tool. It would have to be a new. It would have to be something new added to the equation. It would depend on the equation what it would be, but it would definitely need to be a different angle. That's something that we see often too in today's times, that people using, renaming and rethinking the reasoning for old techniques, but using old techniques to fight problems, and the outcomes always been spelled out before many times.
No, it's very interesting because, again, I put these cutesy quotes before the question, and you put all the discussion into the context you want, and that was good. You sort of rephrased it, and it made me want to say, one person, I said, what new tool do you suggest? And they said, intuition. Now, that was great because they wanted to say, well, it's not necessary. They didn't want to make the word new a dominant factor in the answer. So just keep that in mind. Are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
Oh, I'm not afraid of nothing.
Yeah. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I have insomnia, so I don't know. There's like a whole salad of things that are on my plate. I'll just lie there, and if one worry starts wearing down, another one will take its place. It's a parade.
Yeah, those are good metaphors. Salad and parade. So Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about them. So, like you might turn to YouTube and you study things on YouTube or watch them, entertain, educated, whatever. But there's hidden psychic things that YouTube is how it's shaping your behavior, our behavior. So McLuhan says, well, we can look to the artist to reveal them to us.
Was McLuhan an artist?
Oh, well, this is good. I love when people flip and start asking me questions. McLuhan was definitely an artist, but he wouldn't say it. He affected a lot of artists. But, I mean, Stanley made 2001 to convolute McLuhan, blah, blah, blah. But he, in a lot of ways, he was a poet and an artist who was teasing people that he was an academic, because he was an academic. He wasn't a theorist. It says in Wikipedia, media theorist. He was teasing people to believe his percepts were concepts. So you teach concepts in education, but he was going, no, I'm just guessing. I'm just hunching here. I'm just telling jokes. I'm just inventing new questions and new metaphors. So he came to this conclusion, studying people like Pound. Their artists are broadcasting these hidden psychic effects so that we can learn to cope with them. But why do humans still ignore the hidden psychic effects, this broadcasting of these hidden psychic effects? They can turn to the artist. Why do humans, we still ignore that? Even though we can turn to them to reveal them to us.
Well, there's a lot of different ideas in that one. First off, artist has been a word I've struggled with my whole life, and recently the idea that I've come up with is like I couldn't figure out what it was, because when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be an artist, and of course, I'll put that when people ask what I do just to be lazy. I'll say, oh, I'm an artist, but the idea of being an artist, I would be working on something and struggling with ideas, and somebody who made string sculptures in their garage on weekends would say, oh, I'm an artist too, and I'm like, trying to find what it was that we both were the same of, and also I listened to people who I respected. My wife said art is something that makes you look up from your circumstances. It makes you look up from where you are. And a good friend of mine, who I consider to be a wonderful artist, said it's something that touches you deep inside and touches you personally. And so I realized, for me to say, oh, I'm an artist, is for me to say, I can touch you deep inside and make you look up from your circumstances, and it just seems so stupid to, and conceited to say that. And then I realized, well, it's a compliment. If somebody says you're an artist, that's a huge compliment. And if they say that something you've made is art, that's a compliment. It means that it did touch them, or it did affect them in a wonderful way. But it's not for you to say how it's going to affect them and how it's going to. I mean, if you do want to dictate how it's going to affect people, then you're creating propaganda, but so I tiptoe around the word art a lot.
That was really good, because definitely it's you summarize, cliff notes the entire sort of interview here in a lot of ways with that. So thank you. So can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
My earliest memory, yeah. I have a few. I had one when I was a real little kid. I had a dream that we were cavemen. We were cave people, me and my family. And I remember trying to explain that to my parents, but they didn't, I kept saying, no, we were like it was a memory I was having. Like it was some kind of, deja vu from a previous life or something. And I'm like, no, we were. And they're like, well, we meaning people at one point in time. I'm like, no, we were. And I remember, at the age of, I don't know, maybe 4, trying to put that one across. Didn't really go very far.
That's beautiful. It reminds me, maybe you saw Spike Jones making music when he tells you the history of music, and it goes back to 2 cave guys banging. Have you ever seen that video? They're banging 2 rocks, and you saw it. It's stuck in your head, and then you dreamt it. Or it could be past life regression. That was good. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Oh, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
There's like I say, I get stuck in it sometimes, and we'll just toil in it. And I have this thing in this movie that I made. It's the part of a global collaborative. And for a while, I would go out and do these science lectures called Deep Astronomy and the Romantic Sciences. And one of the things I would talk about is being transdimensional, drifting inadvertently between dimensions. And one of the symptoms or the signs that you are multidimensional or transdimensional is continuing an argument while you're alone. So
that is good. You mean to yourself, your inner dialogue?
Just, you have an argument with somebody, and for the next few days you're just continuing that argument. You're just just again doing the dishes and just going saying it better the next time, and improving your stance and really showing them.
Very good. Tell me an early role model, someone who had an impact on you within your immediate family, and then the second part is outside your immediate family. Just briefly, and what was that specific impact?
My grandfather swore all the time, and he just always had these like really vulgar jokes, and he lived in the desert and had false teeth and a glass eye, and I would watch him take them out in the morning and clean them, and he would sit on the toilet and smoke hold hand rolled cigarettes, and he was a huge influence on me. I just thought he was so wonderful.
What did you get from him deep down inside? What do you think you got from him?
He had a really interesting way of looking at the world, and he was funny. He was really funny, and he was also really tough. Hold on one moment. My cat's scratching at the door. Move it. There we go.
No, that's your granddad. I know. No, that's beautiful. So you mean you sort of, because you have an amazing sense of humor. At least you made me laugh a lot.
Thanks.
It's funny, but you have that toughness too. Tough and funny. Would you say that's what you got from him?
Yeah, he was. Well, thank you. He was very tough, and he was very funny. He dropped out of school when he was about, I think, like 14 was the last year he was in school. He was in and out up till then, and then he used to run liquor and jump freight trains, and he was a boxer for a while. But the thing was, he was also brilliant. He could fix anything. And during when he was young, he invented fuel injection, long before it was made for his car. He would just fix his car to do anything. And if he went to a place where gas was expensive and stove oil was cheap, he would fix his car to run on stove oil through that territory. And he was really incredible. But nobody would credit him for that. He's this weird dude living out in the desert doing his own thing. He swore every sentence, and my grandmother, his wife, never swore once. And they were such a lovely, wonderful dynamic, the two of them. I used to spend all my summers with them.
Okay, that was great. Now, outside your immediate family, someone had an impact on you.
Oh, there's a lot there.
Well, just name one.
As a child or young adult?
Well, it doesn't have to be as a child, but it's sort of more, whenever you want, just someone who had an impact on you. And what was it outside your immediate family?
Well, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be Mel Blanc. He did all the voices for the Warner Brother cartoons. I just thought he was
Great.
I thought he was just the most amazing genius artist ever in the history of the world. When I was a kid, I was blown away by him. And
that's pretty dang good. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
no, they would, they were respectful of religions, and I think they took me to church twice just because they thought they should, but it didn't. That wasn't a thing.
Do you pray?
Yeah, I would call it that.
Yeah. If God exists, what would you like God to tell you after you die or say to you?
Nothing.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think evil people exist, but I think it's transient within them. I don't think it's it's kind of like being a hero. Somebody's floating down a river and you jump off a bridge and you swim and you save them, that you're considered a hero for the rest of your life. But it was that one moment when you were being heroic. And I think there's some people who do some horrible things throughout their lives, but they're capable of not being that way as well. And sometimes those things go so far into their past that they should have credit for changing.
It's amazing because that's something people sometimes say. They go, everybody's capable of evil.
Yeah, that's true. I believe that's true. And everybody's capable of being a hero. And
really well put. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? This one I'm going to set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you react to the Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, I think if you hold on to anger, you empower them. If they do something horrible and again, there you are doing your dishes, fighting that argument and fighting that fight all by yourself, then, they're off doing something else. They're off, eating dinner, and you're the one suffering. You're the one dealing with it. So, there's no recipe really. I don't think for a thinking person to shed all anger because they want to. I think it's something you have to come to. But I think that's. I think that. Am I getting off the subject?
No, that was good. Listen, we're all about getting off the subject. It's all about just fun. But I'm just saying, like, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy?
Well, one thing you have to ask too is, you may consider them your enemy, but would they consider you their enemy? What threat are you posing? Maybe they're just, horrible people and for the moment, and made some horrible comments or something and set you up in a very bad way. And, but again, you don't know what they're going through. They're probably not sitting at home plotting against you.
Right. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When you like it.
That is good. Boy, you are sharp with words, man. You know how to just. Did you grow up a reader though?
No, I probably read my first book when I was 24, and I was like a D- student, and I don't read much at all. All these books, those are my wife's. She reads them. I don't read much. I write a lot.
But I like the enemy thing. I usually leave out these other quotes, but because you're such a fun and humorous guy, I got it. Levi Strauss said, Cannibals boil friends and roast enemies.
That's awesome.
Um, James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin over 100 years ago, and he basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I think there's I'm all for the living life. But movies are fun too. If you don't, it's I think people take it for granted that all movies are good at some point, and they're not. There's a gluttony, and also I'll point this out. There's the way people absorb information and entertainment is totally different than it's ever been before. There was a point in time you went to a movie and you would never see that movie again, and
Right.
then there was and if you did see it again, it was like that was a goal. But then and you would recall them with your friends all the time. Like me and my friends when we were 15, like trying to remember all the lines to Monty Python and the Holy Grail because we saw it once.
Yeah.
But now then VHSs came out and everybody could go rent a movie that weekend, and then now you've just got so much that it's not precious anymore, and some of it's really good, but you could watch the greatest film ever made, but most people aren't going to do that tonight. So the consumption and the speed and the techniques and everything have changed to a point where it's become like this food. Yeah, I'm more for getting out there and seeing what's going on if I can, than sitting and watching somebody else. Also, you know what I hate? And this is a little side note. I hate when I can hear them writing when I'm watching a movie, when you can hear the thought process of the writer. It's just awful. It's like knowing a magician's tricks and then going and watching a magician and trying to be
Right.
cool.
Yeah, like when you're watching a movie. Well, this is good because I'll be watching a movie. I don't like to watch movies anymore. It's like, okay, but my wife wants to watch a movie, so it's a nice time to spend with her. And so I'll be watching, I'll go, "That's good writing." And it's like, that's like Louis Buñuel saying, if you walk out of a movie and say, "That cinematography was great," that's a shitty movie. Because as soon as you start analyzing the process, or like you're saying, I can hear the screenwriter writing, or I feel the writing, the making of this, then the film isn't really doing its job, let's say. But we like, once you start making films, it's hard to go to a film and not analyze the making.
Yeah.
Like Guido Pontecarvo made one of the greatest films ever. Talk about great films, The Battle of Algiers. And they go, "Well, what do you think people get from your film?" He goes, "I don't know, how to make a movie." And the film was used by George Bush as a training film and the Black Panthers as a training film. So it's like this amazing fake documentary. It's called fiction, but it is a fake documentary. So Cory, walk us through your path of, like, you're saying you're a writer now. You're saying, you hate to be called, "I'm an artist," blah, blah, blah. But, you're a musician and a filmmaker from what I've experienced you as, and truly an entertainer in that, but it's like edgy entertainment. You were that Billy Nair show is pretty dang successful for what you were setting out to do. Just like that, your neighborhood local theater here, folks. It's like, so walk us through that process. You're growing up and you're hearing music, and then you're going, when do you go, "Oh, I can do that"? Like you see a ukulele player and go, "Oh, I can do that. I'm going to do that." Or you see, like, you already said a little, you see Monty Python with your friends and go, oh, we can repeat this, but where did you go? I can be a musician. I can be a filmmaker.
It was all curiosity, mostly. When I was a kid, I mean, all I wanted to do was just sit in a rocking chair and listen to loud headphones and drink coffee and pretend it was me making that music in my head. And I reached a point where I decided I would like to play music, and friends were starting a band, and they let me come over and sing, and it was horrifying. It was not the fantasy that I had. And I remember my first couple of shows, like, I feel sorry for anybody who had to see that. It was just terrible. And, my legs were shaking, and all of my casual imaginary concerts, nothing like that at all, And so it was
what was the genre?
It was just weird stuff. I was writing it, and I didn't.
Was it Residents or metal, or what was it like? What kind of music was it?
Oh, it was pathetic. I don't know what you'd call it.
You're giving me adjectives and not a genre, though.
No, there was no genre.
There was no genre. That's the best type of music.
Yeah, it was. But I remember, like, it was so bad that and so painful that I just couldn't believe it. The next day I'd be like, how did I fail so badly at this? And that's what kept me going, was I wanted to be good at it. And so I just kept trying. And then I got comfortable at it. Actually, this is kind of funny. I got comfortable at singing, but if the guitar player broke a string or something, I'd have nothing to say. And I'd be like, oh God. And then I wouldn't look at the audience. Like, I was terrified of the audience. Then one day I was doing security. I used to run security in nightclubs in San Francisco. And I was doing security, and they wanted me that Jonathan Richman was playing.
Yeah.
And he was looking at the audience. He was looking them in the eye, and it was just a guitar and somebody playing toms on a drum. And he would point to the audience and go, he doesn't love you, I do. And, play his guitar and sing at everybody. And they told me, they said, when he's done, walk him to the dressing room. It's a ways off, so nobody bothers him. And I'm like, all right. So everybody mobbed the stage, and he's like shaking everyone's hand and totally earnest and looking him in the eye, going, oh, thank you very much. And this was at a point where, the moment, I would hide right after the show, So he's like shaking everyone's hand. And so finally it thinned out, and I didn't have a chance. And he's playing with his guitar, tuning it and stuff. And there was two people kind of standing over a ways away, just watching him. And I walked up. I said, do you want me to walk you to your dressing room now? And he said, he kind of looks up through his eyebrows at the people, and he goes, no, there's still a couple of people who I think might want to say hi. And I was like, okay, this guy's a genius.
That is beautiful. Yeah, he's very good. That was a great lesson. But did you go to high school and college and do theater?
I drew. That's all I did. I learned how to draw in high school, and I sat in on one drawing course at a junior college, and that was my education.
And so you're self-taught musician and lyricist and filmmaker.
Everything.
You never took filmmaking lessons at all, or?
No, I had the luxury of nobody wanting to make my movies, so I had a lot of time to play with them. One time when I wrote The American Astronaut, nobody was going to make that, and I could barely spell, so I was, always trying to figure out how to fix it. And somebody goes, have you thought about storyboarding it? And I was like, no. And I looked up what storyboards were, and I ended up doing a graphic novel version of it, just doing these drawings and pasting them all over the screenplay, and had this big, thick thing. And I sent that to the Sundance Film Festival, and they put it in their screenwriters workshop and brought me out, and everyone was nice to me.
Right. So really your root is drawing, is a fine art.
Yeah, drawing. Animation was my first film. My first film was I made a rotoscope in my bathroom out of a busted projector I found, and a friend of mine shot this thing of me acting, lip syncing to some music that I recorded at my friend's garage, and spent 2.5 years painting, tracing and painting these frames, and it was 2,173 paintings, and it was really boring. It was so boring. And then another person filmed them. He said, if you spend all this time doing it, I can spend an afternoon filming these, photographing the paintings. And so that was my first film.
What's that called?
It's called Billy Nair. It's about 2.5 minutes.
So it's the roots of Billy Nair show.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So a screenwriting teacher told me a great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great film or great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Oh, I think it's I think if it's a really good film, then it's a sign that nobody reads. Kind of like a private property sign that I keep riding my bike past these days and getting in trouble. But that's something that, like, I did this record. It was my first solo record called the Small Star Seminar, and I had 2 months to do it. There was a festival in Poland that they wanted to fly me out and they were going to pay me, and I didn't have anything I had done before that I could do there, So I had 2 months to do an hour's worth of music. So I wrote the Small Star Seminar in 2 months, and it was in Poland too. So I wanted my lyrics to be projected behind me. So I had to make these little clips and everything. Took a lot of work in a short amount of time, but it's my favorite record. And it's a theme record, it's the idea of a self-help seminar kind of guy, and it has these ideas, and people took it seriously. There were people. A man came up to me and said that he was diagnosed with an illness and he was going to commit suicide, but he heard my record, and he said that after somebody's like, why did you write that? I'm like, and he's like, I was surprised to hear you talking about the music kind of flippantly like that. I took it very seriously, and other people did as well, which I was, I took as like just the most amazing compliment that anybody would, it would find somebody at a point in time when they needed to find something that would make them feel a certain way. That wasn't why I wrote it.
Yeah. That's like the guy walks in the bookstore and says, where's your self-help books? He goes, wouldn't that defeat the whole purpose? Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. When you're making your art, how much are you thinking of your audience?
I'm thinking in terms of it being an audience member. I think I'm thinking about how nice it would be to see something different and something new, and what impact that would have on me. There's a lot of things. That's something I always tell young filmmakers. Well, not always, but I have told young filmmakers in the past that if you didn't make it, would you like it?
Yeah, it's good. Bruce Conner said that same thing. I says, why'd you make that? He says, because I didn't see anyone else making that, so I thought I'd try it.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. Like clothing extends our skin, knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter in a film projector or a camera's extension of our eyelid. What does the pencil or the drawing utensil extend for you? What humanness?
Oh, I don't know. I have to think about that one. It's a voice, I guess.
Yeah, it's good voice. Because then I was going to say, what does the ukulele extend for you?
Oh, easy chords. Cheap and easy side. That and the auto harp. That's the laziness in me. If I worked hard, I'd learn to play other instruments.
Michael Apted made a lot of great films. 40 years ago, I asked him, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? So MTV was changing. Rapid montage was invented by Abel Gance in 22, but it's really flourished 40 years ago with MTV. Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. He says, because we've learned to take in information faster. And I ask this with a bias. Can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
It's cheaper. It's confusing people and keeping them, just hitting them with stuff really quickly. That's how people take control of a situation. Is you come in and you just start yelling and talking really loud, and nobody can get their thoughts together. In a way, it's cheating. And when I say it's cheaper, it's like, I forget what the theory is called, or what this is called, but it's that the cheapest thing is more widely circulated. And, an example of that would be, a penny versus $100 bill. And I think that it's not exactly the same thing, but it's akin.
It's good. Is multitasking literally possible?
Well, I told you my grandfather used to smoke cigarettes on the toilet while reading a newspaper. So yeah,
it all goes back to him. What's his name, by the way?
John Sterling.
John Sterling. Yeah, it sounds like my kind of hero. Sounds like this guy Harry Parch.
No.
Oh, dude, Harry Parch, check him out. There'd be no Tom Waits without Harry Parch.
Okay.
He's this guy who invented like really experimental music, invented thumb pianos, invented some heavy music in San Diego. Then he burned it all and became a hobo. Oh. Then he started reading hobo sayings on the wall and put them in, and then he started making music. But he's sort of like one of the great hobo experimentalist of all time, but he was just a hobo kind of guy. Yeah. Well, the difference between a hobo and a bum. A bum will say, hey, you got a spare cigarette? A hobo will go, smoking alone. What was the motive of the cave artist? Your hunch.
The motive of the cave artist?
Yeah.
Showing off for the ladies. Or vice versa, showing off for the gentleman. Who knows who made those things? I'm taking it from my own stance,
Well, I like that.
Yeah, just saying, yeah, is that tiger? Yeah, watch this.
Yeah, this guy the other day, I don't know if you've seen him, Clint Innes. He's an experimental filmmaker in Canada. I couldn't believe his answer. He said, to keep people in the cave.
That's very good.
Like, hey, come on over to my cave and see my art. And now, stay here and look at it. Don't just run through and leave.
Yeah, no, I think it would be. I think it was the first, I guess you'd call them. What would you call them when the alpha males are the big burly guys, and then there's the nerdy alpha males who could paint really good. It was like that breed of mind was trying to procreate as well.
Yeah, that's NAM, nerdy alpha male.
Nerdy alpha males. Yeah.
Do artists have a moral obligation?
Oh, well, it depends. Some people they're just doing it for money, but then there's I think everybody has a moral obligation.
Yeah, I get this is a new question I just started asking, and 80% of people go, everybody has a moral obligation.
Good.
But it was good, the selling out thing. I love these two quotes. Al from Flipside goes, don't sell out, sneak in. And the other one is Schrader. He says, the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out, but fail.
That's nice. I get
Yeah.
that. Somebody once told me a long time ago, and I was irritated by the comment, but said that any kid who picks up a guitar is just ready to sell out, whether they know it or not. And I was like, oh, that's not true. And as years went on, I'm like, maybe he had something there.
Well, it is interesting because this is goes back to studying Zappa for 50 years. He says, I write music for myself. If other people like it, great. Now, in my opinion, that's romanticizing it, because he knew growing up in a capitalist consumer society, if he hit these notes and said these words, kids would pay money to buy his music, then he could make more music. So he wasn't really a sellout, but he was a self-made millionaire. So, it's how like every kid is ready to sell. It's like easy for us growing up going, yeah, kids don't want to be musicians now. They want to be rock stars. Like, don't you worry about playing music or being true to your music? No. And so is that wrong or bad? Who's judging,
Yeah, actually, I don't think anybody wants to be a rock star anymore.
What do they want to be now?
Oh, I don't know. Hip hop artists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend, a young guy, and he's a hip hop artist, and I realized it was sort of a couple of years back, but it was a realization to me. I'm like, this man is a musician, yet guitars have absolutely nothing to do with him. Like, they're just not even in his will well,
Yeah.
And that used to be that was the sign of rebellion. You had your guitar, and that was the rebel. And now it's that's not the case.
Yeah. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
I don't think either of them are more important.
Wow, a good answer. So you've accomplished a lot. And Cory, how do you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role in your accomplishments, second and third?
Luck.
Luck's number one. What's second?
I think it stops there.
Gary Player nailed it. He says, the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like on The Simpsons, when Lisa Simpson says, Dad has the worst luck when he's been drinking.
He has the worst luck when he's drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. T.S. Eliot said that poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Loops, repetition.
Oh, loops. That is good. Hey, you could be a hip hop star.
Yeah, or somebody who has to learn how to forgive every now and then.
just sample those loops, homie.
Yeah. Keep hearing that thing that person said when you were riding by on your bike for the next month. Yeah.
Oh, I carry it on my bike because I'm a bicyclist 3 times a day. And my bike, I have pad, paper, pencil, man. I'll pull over because I call it circular thinking. The wheels and your bike help you just churn the ideas. I mean, you're a big time bicyclist, right?
I got a bike 6 months ago, and I've been riding it all over the place. I rode it from Queens down to Cape May, New Jersey, and back. And that was roughly 350 miles. A lot of it was really rough sand roads that I had to push, and I had all my gear and my tents and food and everything on it, so it weighed a ton. But it was amazing. And I went down there to meet Ed Bigsby and see. He owns a few green cemeteries. He's working with me. I'm doing a monarch butterfly project, and I've been reaching out to green burial grounds, conservation cemeteries, and getting them to reintroduce native milkweed into their areas. So it's good for the butterflies, and also it's not so bad if somebody's having a very difficult time of life to see butterflies at a loved one's funeral, and so I stopped to meet him, and I saw his cemetery, the Stillman Town Cemetery, which is a green burial ground. One of the most amazing places I've ever seen. I mean, it was just beautiful. And he gave me a tour, and the paths are like 2-inch thick moss, and it's bright green moss, and it's natural. It just grows there naturally. So then I camped out near a horse farm near there, and then rode down to Cape May, where all the monarch butterflies stop and hang out and wait for the wind to be right to carry them across the water. And ate a hamburger. It was my first cooked food in 3 or 4 days, and then came back. And it was a real real education, just trying to do that. What I assumed a long trip like that would be was similar to what it really was. I want to keep doing them and just kind of get it under my skin, keep learning.
It's beautiful. And again, back to the bike, did you find the bike riding enabled your thinking to evolve and flow, or is it you're too tense trying to ride carefully? I mean,
it's a different part of my brain that I'm not used to using. I've never learned how to drive a car. I've never driven a car. So now I'm out there in traffic and I'm weaving around, and I equate it to being like a chameleon with 2 eyes moving around constantly on the sides of my head. And there's the visual and the audio components of being out in that kind of situation, and your physical, moving all your everything physically. It's waking up a certain part of my brain that hasn't been there before or hasn't been used. And sometimes on the long freeways, I'd start to write in my head. I'd think about a project I'm doing, and I would go through it, and it was actually really helpful. But most of it was just existing, and I like it.
Yeah, you have to have a high awareness level to be a bicyclist. It's a dangerous sport, but I love it. And I'm just curious, what you're doing with the monarchs, do you call that activism? And what attracted you to pursue that? Environmentalism, or what do you call that?
What was the word?
Well, is it like environmental activism, or how do you describe your role of what you're doing with that?
Well, the first part of how I got into that was I was because of Stingray Sam, where I played a singing cowboy. I was asked by a German filmmaker who had seen the film if I would be a singing cowboy in a documentary that they were making for German television. And of course I would. And so we followed the monarch. It was about butterflies. And so we followed the monarch butterflies from Chicago all the way down to Michoacan, Mexico. And it was amazing. And I learned everything there was. We stopped at butterfly reserves and stopped at universities and talked to professors and everything. So I got a crash course in monarch butterfly biology, and then ending up in a forest where there was an estimated 7 million monarch butterflies just pulling the branches on trees. Like they were just, it was thick and prehistoric and amazing. And while I was there, I was into it. I was very impressed, of course, but I was also into what I was doing, and, very much in the moment as opposed to in the splendor. But since then, it just keeps becoming more and more amazing to me. And so I was doing, so I learned a lot about butterflies. I keep learning about them. They're weird. They're a weird bunch of kids, those butterflies. Everything I learn about them is stranger than before. And while I was doing that, I was trying to write a story about Abraham Lincoln's embalmer. And with that, I ended up learning about the history of embalming in America, which begins with the Civil War. And I was working with Amy Brown, who at the time was making a documentary, which turned out to be a wonderful documentary about green burial called A Will for the Woods. And so I ended up learning about green burial through her. And then, when I got to a point where I wanted to work with butterflies and help them, I thought, well, these green cemeteries that are popping up, some of them are previously traditional cemeteries, and reintroducing native milkweed is a perfect match. And again, it brings beautiful things to people who are having hard times. So
beautiful. What's the name of the German doc on the monarch butterflies? Can we see that?
I don't think you can see it anywhere, but it's called Butterfly Stories. I thought it was pretty good. Those guys, I love those guys. Oh my God, they're so wonderful. But there was times when we'd be on the hill, and I would, I was improvising, and I would do a take, and when it was over, I'd be like, "I'm sorry, guys, that was horrible." And they're like, "Yeah, well, the first one was better." And then I saw the film. I'm like, they used all the crappy takes.
Beautiful. Is perception reality?
At the moment.
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Oh, yeah, all the time. That's what motivates me.
Name one.
That I've achieved, or just are impossible?
Well, either way, you put it in the context.
Supporting my family without an income. That's one.
That's a good one. That's like I learned from Richard Berry, the guy who wrote Louie Louie. They're talking to him on the radio, and he goes, "Job? I can't even spell job." So I used that line for 30 years, and then a guy says, "Can you spell broke?"
Every 5 minutes, yes. Yeah, no, it's I live I'm unrealistic, and but I try hard, and I get a lot of I have a lot of people trying to help me out. So we've managed to stay afloat, and my wife has been able to make that happen as well. So
beautiful. Cory, tell me one major element of your art, let's just call it art, your creative things, that has changed. One major element that's changed, and one major element that's stayed the same in the decades you've been doing it.
I think, well, when I first started making movies, I had it in my head that everything had to be a movie, because I loved making movies. I still love making movies. But the American Astronaut and even Stingray Sam were pretty traditional. I got to a point where I wanted to see if I could make a movie without money, and to make a movie that would evolve organically. And that's when I made that global collaborative feature. It's called Deep Astronomy and the Romantic Sciences. But now I'm at a point where I feel like the Red Planet Planning Commission is the name of the whole project I'm doing with the butterflies and funerals. But also I'm putting together a festival called Butterfly. It's I_butterfly. And I've been hashtagging that #I_butterfly and taking pictures of my shoulder patch as I go riding around in front of things. I'm keeping my face out of it. But to me, that's storytelling too. To go out and share these adventures with people, just even in photographs. And now recently somebody said, iButterfly should work in NFTs. You should create some non-fungible tokens that you can sell, and maybe that would help support this project, because definitely every project needs support. And so I started looking up what NFTs were, and I realized, well, it seems like a lot of people are trying to repackage what they've already done and sell it in NFTs too. Like a new store opened up and we can do it there too, But I started looking at that and I thought, that's actually an untapped way to tell a story, that to create like a factual functional fiction situation, is to create to learn how to develop these NFTs to create a narrative body. And so that's something that I'm playing with right now. I'm looking at ways of doing that, and I've got some ideas that I'm really excited about, that I think about when I'm riding around on a bicycle starving.
Well, that was good. It's sort of like McLuhan's urging or probing people to invent new questions and new metaphors that we can, go, do newness. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you've turned into a strength.
Oh. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I've had well, I guess trying to find bravery where there was none before. Even when I was a kid, I'd get on stage and just be so horrified that I would just be the worst thing to look at on a stage, and then having to figure out, go, well, next time I'm really going to do better, and then get on stage and just do worse, and continue doing that until I was able to, just face that fear so many times that it didn't exist anymore. Maybe I do that kind of thing a lot, actually.
That's well put. It's sort of like Sam Beckett saying, fail once, then fail again better. And
yeah.
then someone added, he goes, yeah, and then fail again worse.
Yeah.
It is flipping a breakdown into a breakthrough, or a rejection into a redirection. That's what that's about, is like,
Yeah. We don't get to choose our failures, and that's what makes them so the things that we think about when we're trying to go to sleep at night. It's all the easy things that we get to choose, and they work out exactly as we plan, that aren't necessarily what make the day interesting.
That is interesting. We don't get to pick our failures, choose our failures. Yeah. Wow, that's a heavy one. So maybe talk about your sense of humor. What is the function of laughter? And then we can go into satire a little. Swift says compares satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. So, like, who are your roots? I mean, you mentioned Monty Python, but who are your roots in developing you sort of got a suave sense of humor? Were there other comedians you watched growing up, and maybe how you developed your sense of humor and satire?
Oh, I just loved cartoons as a kid. Just
You mean Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny?
Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny. I still do. Like I'll see a clip from a Family Guy episode, and it'll be so funny, and I'll think, I can't believe nobody's thought of that before.
Yeah.
It's something that's always been there, and nobody looked at it that way before. And that's something that I'm glad my kids have senses of humor too, because I consider having a good sense of humor being, it's the same. It's made of the same stuff as being a scientist, which is to look at something that everybody has seen every day, but to see it differently, and to be able to present it in a way that nobody has expected, or is in a new way. It's a scientific discovery. It's a joke. It's an instinct to see things abstractly, and not the way that they are set on the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was good. How do you find peace of mind?
Oh, sporadically.
Can you forget to die?
I have so far.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Oh God, that poor he would hate me. Yeah. I always said that it's a good thing I didn't have a time machine, or otherwise I'd go back every 5 years and slap myself.
There's a line that goes, "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait morphed it into "You are what you hate." James, James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." Cory, how would you relate to this thought, or just any thoughts on how does this line make you feel? You create what you resist.
I mean, just off the cuff, it sounds like young romance. That's
You mean not Jung, but Young
yeah,
romance?
young meaning
Yeah,
at a young age, that um, painting onto another person these things that
right.
you've always wanted to see on someone, and somebody comes in and you're able to overlook reality for a moment and let your heart lie to you. um,
Wow. Well, what's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
Significant difference. It would depend. You'd have to pick two to there's a lot of I think that depends on the individuals.
Yeah.
But if I was going to make a broad brushstroke sweeping comment, well, physical aside, all right. I don't know. I'd have a hard time coming up with
That,
that.
that's fine. It's very interesting because 80% people say this, men are more linear and women are more emotional, but it's beautiful when someone actually says they actually sometimes say there is no difference. But why do you think women live longer than men?
Because they're greedy.
What caused matriarchy?
Oh, uh, bullies. Bullies were they come in waves and they rule over everything for a while, and then those shy little nerds in the caves painting pictures of tigers have their day in the sun, and then the bullies come back in and take over again.
You're using all the good pop language here. Thank God we didn't get into cancel culture yet. No, we won't. Well, we call it nuance culture. So these are 5 quickie questions Alan Watts posed, just in a few words, a couple words. Who started it all?
Oh. um, Who started it all? Mom.
Good. Are we going to make it?
It won't be what we think it is.
Nice. Where do we put it?
Well, we haven't been there yet. That's that goes back to you can't break something down with the same tools that you took to create it.
That's good. Who's cleaning it up?
Not me.
Is it serious?
No, I am cleaning it up. Is it serious? Yes, but that doesn't mean you can't laugh at it.
Right. Again, that was Frank Zappa says, I'm very serious about being not serious. Should toilet paper come off the roll over or under?
I'm an overman.
Why?
Just I don't like any surprises.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oh, I've thought I've made jokes about this forever. I can't think of any of them at the moment. My autobiography. I don't know.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell would it be?
The last question. Just as I'm struggling for answers. The little train that could was one.
That's good. The little train that could. Now they want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Ooh, rubber cement.
Nice. You know the Lenny Bruce routine on rubber cement. Anyways, check it out. It's funny. Okay, they want the ink on some of the letters to be not black on white paper. What color would some of the letters be? What color would you choose other than black ink?
Dark ash.
Nice. If a statue is built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Concrete at the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, good God. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
A Cuban cigar.
That is a good answer. It's good. You never had it and you never want it. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Tell all my friends.
That is an original answer. I've never had that answer. Cory, that was brilliant. Tell me what attracted you to the lo-fi tool, the Pixel 2000. This is an amazing little floppy thing that happened in filmmaking where instead of going for the highbrow better, now you can make a feature film on your cell phone and it even looks good and sounds great.
Yeah.
But at some point between 87 and 89, Fisher-Price is putting out these toy video cameras that record on audio cassette, sound, and picture. Just sort of walk me through. How did you get into that tool? Were you making Super 8? Whoa.
What is that? Sorry, something.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone now. Well, were you making like Super 8 films or using some low tech stuff, or how did you get into the Pixel 2000?
I was my first film was the animated piece, and that was done on 16 millimeter. And there was a young man living down the street from me who his name was Lance Accord, who was studying filmmaking at the San Francisco Art Institute, and he's gone on to become a very famous, sought-after cinematographer. But at the time, we were very young, and he filmed he filmed my paintings, my frames, for me. So I was working with a cameraman at the time, and I was working also as a running security at this place called the Paradise Lounge in San Francisco. And one of my doormen said, "I bought this camera for my daughter. We don't like it. Would you like to play around with it? You can have it." And I said, "Sure." And so really that was my first film camera or video camera, was the Fisher-Price. And it had that early lunar landing quality. So I started writing this thing called The Man on the Moon, which was maybe the first confessional films that I'd seen. Now that's a standard in filmmaking, but at the time it seemed like a new idea.
You mean Man in the Moon reeked of this confessional film format?
Yeah, somebody sitting and having a conversation with their camera. I mean, that's a common thing now, but at the time I'd never seen it, so I was trying to do something new.
Yeah. It's interesting because Joe Gibbons was sort of like the darling of Pixel Vision for years. We showed him 12 times in our 31 years, and his were all like psycho evaluating himself, analysis of himself with the camera and Barbie dolls. And yeah. So you just made Man in the Moon with Pixel, or did you make any others?
I played with it a lot, but that was the only thing that I made. And after I made it too, a different friend filmed. We projected it and filmed it on 16 millimeters, so I could show it in festivals.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because do you still have your Pixel camera?
Yeah, I got 2.
Dude, I'll pay to have them repaired if you enter the festival, by the way.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's something to think about.
If they're not working, because we really love people to enter, and a lot of people just hold on to them and don't realize you can hook them up to your cell phone now. It's pretty amazing,
All right, I'll look into that. That's a fun thought. That sounds exciting thought.
So just a few more minutes. I asked for 90 minutes, so we got 6 more minutes. It's really been fun, Cory. I really appreciate your time. Joseph Boyes is an artist. He said, make the secrets productive. Lou Welsh is a ad man and a beat poet. He said, guard the secrets, constantly reveal them. But it was Thornton Wilder in 1928 said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm grateful. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this, but what is it really all about for you?
Curiosity. I think that's the driving force is curiosity. That's why I try not to repeat things. When I made Stingray Sam after the American Astronaut, it seems like it's very similar because I use a lot of the same themes, but I took them in completely different directions. And then I had a few other ideas that I wanted to play with that I've played with since. I've been enjoying also the freedom, like pulling back and the freedom to do things simply. Like when I made this Small Star Seminar, I was performing to recordings that I had made, so I was able to go on a tour on a bus, and I have that experience now. And I've been doing these science lectures. I'm writing a new one, and I'm thinking it would be really interesting to see if I could go on tour on a bike and perform at venues, but just live, in a tent and see if I could pull it off. That's the thing is like, is it possible? That's what I find really exciting is trying to do something I haven't done and I don't see other people doing, and wondering if it could work.
Yeah, you're a real inspiration to me, Cory. I appreciate that. Do you think curiosity is more innate or more invented in humans?
I don't know. I think I get more curious as I get older, but I don't think I'm inventing it. I think it's just where I am at this point in time.
What does courage mean to you now? You mean, what you're doing is sort of courageous, right? To do things differently and like you haven't seen it. What does courage mean to you now?
Oh, that's to courage. There's got to be an equal element of fear. Otherwise you don't need courage. So it's facing, it's finding these fears, finding these things that are seem difficult, and or putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation too.
Yeah.
Like I remember and this is kind of a weird story, but one time I was on tour and a kid, big athletic guy, started choking, and everybody just sat there and stared at him, and I was sitting there staring at him too. And then I thought, all right, and I got up and I gave him a Heimlich maneuver, and this might sound stupid, but there's a certain amount of like embarrassment to be the one to do that, and it worked. He threw up on my arm, and he was fine, and everything was fine. But all night I kept lying there in bed. I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking, I think I did it wrong. I should have grabbed him like this, and I couldn't sleep. And my friend the next day, I told him, yeah, I didn't sleep at all last night. I was worried about how I had done that. And he goes, so you're worried that, or you were trying to figure out how you could have saved his life better? And I'm like, well, you see, the thing is, if I failed, I would have been the only one trying, and so it would have been on me,
But are you? Yeah, I don't know how to do it. Are you supposed to squeeze under the ribs, or?
Well, the only reason I know how to do it is because for a long time I kept eating in this Vietnamese restaurant, and they had a poster on the wall of how to do it, and I just made fun of it all the time. Like it was pregnant with possibilities for satire, and I thought it was so funny, and I kept saying, I go, oh yeah, that looks like our first date, and hugging from the back and like putting your fingers in somebody's mouth and rubbing their chest, and it was funny, and so I had the thing memorized.
That's great. What question or questions remain unresolved for you now, or just like one question that remains unresolved for you?
The one you just asked.
Yeah, that's you know what it is. The guy goes to his guru and he goes, "What's the best question I can ask you?" He goes, "The one you just asked." Hey, do you know Ian Scholes?
No, I don't read. So.
You know he is?
Yeah.
Oh, anyways, you remind me of him a lot. He's an amazing public comedian, satirist, and he was based there in San Francisco, bro. What is it about your art that audience resonate with?
Well, first off, not everybody resonates with my art. There's some people who don't like it at all, but the people who do like it, I think, like the thing I always tell people when they say, "Oh, I really liked your movie," I said, "Then I made it for you." But so there's people who, like the things that I find funny are funny, and also it depends on timing, like it depends on what the dynamic of an audience, the chemistry of an audience, the chemistry of a crowd, how they're going to respond to something, and there's a lot of variables, and you just hope, again, it goes back to luck. You just hope you get lucky, and you find that the people that you make it for have a chance to see it.
Yeah. McLuhan said there's no such thing as a good or bad movie. It's a good or bad viewing experience.
Yeah. I agree and I disagree.
Right. I know earlier on you go, there's so many bad movies, and it is amazing how an aesthetic we create, and then we break it and say, oh, Ed Wood is the worst Hollywood director ever, but his films, you can have a good time watching them.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if Clinton's going to jump on, but I got two more questions to end this wonderful time together. There he is. Clinton, what do you got? Anything?
We got no audio.
You're on mute.
Yeah, there we go. It's been a fun listen, fellas. Thank you. There's one thing you said that I would like to ask, just because I haven't seen the film, but you've done something which focused on this idea of being a multi-dimensional person, and I love the way you describe that as someone who continues an argument with themselves long after it's over. I can certainly relate, right? But I'm wondering, just because there's something provocative about the idea of being multi-dimensional compared to being present here and now, right? It's sort of like what is it, the wit d'escalier, or like staircase wit, as the French say, right? You realize what you should have said once you're already in the staircase on the way out, right?
Right.
Just this sort of also ties in with this idea of, you could be evil, or you've got the potential to be evil, or the potential to be a hero, but potential's worthless. You aren't your potential. You are what you actually end up doing in the moment when the time calls, as actually you just laid out as well, right? So this sort of, is there like, are these two sides here, or is there a dichotomy here between being multi-dimensional and carrying things on in your imagination, or being here now and doing the thing in the moment and facing your fears and actually making the opportunity to happen? Was that what you were setting up there?
I think that's better than what I was setting up. I
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, just because, like you were getting at there, I relate a lot about recognizing that you are probably going to fail a lot at something, and you got to sort of work through that before you finally get good at the other end, right? And then realizing, oh man, I'm probably going to bomb. Well, here we go. Time to get through it and bomb, right? Until finally get good. That was the first 2 years of my YouTube channel here, Jerry. So yeah, I relate intimately to that idea, but I feel like it's getting through the act, the actually doing it, right?
Also, yeah, I mean, that's probably how bar chords for guitar players was invented, is somebody who just couldn't get the chord right.
Yeah. You need that long-term challenge to stay humble, right?
Yeah, and they changed it for everybody and made it doable for people who otherwise wouldn't try. So
yeah, this guy used to play on the Venice Boardwalk. He became a star on MTV, an old black blues guy, and he wore a glove and he taped his one finger and he just did bar chords. But his voice was so good and he was still strumming nice guitar. And I was like, that's amazing, because, you could build up calluses and all that. And he says, no, I'll just wear a glove and tape it up. But Clinton, that was great, because it is resonates with that line. I'm trying to get more control over my spontaneity.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, you have progressed, because we had Cory McAbee on this. So last 2 questions, Cory. It's been a joy and a pleasure. Really enlightening. Thank you so much.
So much fun. This is might be my favorite interview ever.
Oh, well, that's cool. Here's the last 2 questions. What's the healthiest or most impactful cultural shift you see developing today?
Can you say that one more time?
What's the most healthy or impactful cultural shift you see developing today?
Oh, that's a question for an optimist.
You know what? You have ESP Beyond. The next question is, what gives you the most optimism? So you can blend the two. You're supposed to say like youth, or the environmental movement, or we're eating healthier. I mean, you have kids, you have a wife, you see the world. You're in New York. What do you see shifting that's like different these days, that's maybe moving more towards moving the project forward and not pulling us back?
Well, everybody's so polarized these days, and the people I disagree with, I don't even have to talk about them. But the people I do agree with, I have to really scrutinize them, because I'm seeing people who on paper I completely agree with, to the T, acting like fascists, and I'm seeing all sorts of things that are just unhealthy and in the name of good, which I guess both sides would claim that. But I think there's going to be a boiling point where there's, it's just going to become so much that it's like the storm's going to end and people are going to be walking around kind of, I guess, and this sort of relates to it a bit, but there was, if you look at the history of comedy, and you look at what was happening in the world at the time, like right now, I mean, comedians are, under fire, I mean, what was it? Bill Burr said, you could sell a pharmaceutical that'll, addict millions of people and kill people and walk scot-free. But if you tell a bad joke in a strip mall, your life's ruined, you know. And but if you look at the history of comedy, like, and this is a pretty easy example for me to get my head around, is during Vietnam, comedians became very dark, and the former kind of comedy, the Borscht Belt comedy, going, you know, my mother-in-law is this and that, you know, that was out the window. Nobody was digging that. And then, you know, guys like Lenny Bruce were reading the newspaper, and it was all this like really dark stuff, and they were the real comedians. Pretty much the moment Vietnam ended, everybody just wanted to be stupid again. And so Steve Martin was selling out auditoriums with arrows in his head and playing banjo and juggling and doing things that, you know, a couple of years prior, you know, he would have just been booed off the stage, but people wanted that release. And I feel like we're in that boiling point now, where everybody's picking on each other. Everybody's scrutinizing each other. Everybody's policing each other. And it's very uncomfortable. And I think that there's going to be a release somewhere around the corner, hopefully.
Yeah. Very good. So that's what gives you the most optimism, that there's something around the corner. So that's the question.
Actually, I always think something good's going to happen. You know, I really do.
So you are more an optimist than a pessimist.
Yeah. And I would say that. I mean, I do have my dark moments and my pessimistic moments too. And you know, I can get pretty upset like anybody else. But I think at the end of the day, I really do believe that something good is capable of happening, and I think it's fun to kind of, you know, just to make it happen. Sometimes you just got to, you know, hike up your pants and go out looking for trouble, you know, and see where it takes you.
Sometimes you just got to jump on your bicycle and chase down those butterflies.
Yeah, you got to. When you're on a bicycle, everyone hates you. You know, they have so much hatred, they don't know where to put it, and they see somebody on a bike, and I'll just put it there. You know,
are you going to come up behind me and go ding 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 on your stupid bell?
I don't have a bell.
Good. Well,
yeah.
I'd rather you just clip me and get it over with.
No, I make all sorts of weird noises. I go, la, 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 you know, I make no sense when I'm approaching people.
No, I definitely use a bell, and I need it. You people walking on the city, in the city, sidewalks, cars, you got to have something or you're going to die. Bicycling is the most dangerous sport on the planet because it's the sport most people participate in. But yeah, there's a lot to it. But that was a good positive note to end on. Cory, thank you so much.